We are now 4 years into the official release of Valorant, and in those 4 years, we've learned that Valorant can be a complex, layered game. The player base as a whole is getting much better mechanically, utility, and game sense wise. On top of this, Riot has added complex agents, buffs, and nerfs that constantly shake up the game, making it even more complicated to master. If you're tired of being mediocre at the game, these are some useful tips that will help you. First, I want to address your movement when shooting. If you notice, Valorant is a stop and shoot game. It isn't Call of Duty where you can just run and gun. Well, that is if an enemy is further than 5 meters. But let's talk about fights that are beyond this close quarter mark. Depending on the distance, you either have to stay completely still while shooting, strafing in between each of your shots, or you can quickly strafe from side to side without taking a full step in either direction. I personally love this method as it's pretty annoying visually for your enemies. And while doing this, you're fairly accurate while spraying. Now, understand if you decide to take a full step while spraying, your recoil is just going to go all over the place. The time it takes to recover your recoil is very long, so it's best not to make this mistake. Let me introduce you to the 3 movement modes that I like to use. For long-range gunfights, we should be shooting, then strafing, and then shooting again repeatedly, so this way we're constantly a moving target after we've let off 1 to 3 shots. If we are within spraying distance, meaning medium-range gunfights, then we can implement the small little strafes that are side to side to remain an annoyingly difficult target for our enemies to hit. Let's call this method of moving jitter stepping. I like doing this because a lot of times this will cause your enemy to panic since on their screen, you're rapidly moving left and right. But of course, if you take too large of a step in any direction, your recoil is going to be completely thrown off. And then of course, we have the third and final movement mode, which is just straight up running and gunning, which is highly useful for gunfights that are within 5 meters or maybe even 7 meters maximum. It may take you a bit of time to be able to implement these different modes on the fly. It's important that you practice this in deathmatch or team deathmatch just so you can understand the feeling and you can make it natural. Next, I'd like to talk about positioning. Now, there's a rule that you should follow when positioning, and that is if you're exposed to more than one angle at a time, your positioning is horrible. Let's take a look at A site on the map Bind, for example. If we're positioned here, then we are exposed not only to triple, but also to U-Haul. Now, the better way to limit the number of angles that we're exposed to is if we position ourselves here. This way, on the left side, we're only exposed to if someone swings us from triple, and on the right angle, we are only exposed if someone swings us from showers. Another option is to position ourselves here. This way, we're only exposed to someone who is about to swing us from the lamps, or otherwise known as U-Haul. But in both positions that I've highlighted, notice how we're only exposed to what's directly in front of us. We're using our environment to cover our left, right, or even behind us. So make sure before you're about to take a fight that you don't have any threats to your left, you don't have any threats to your right, or you don't have any threats behind you. Everything that you need to focus on is directly in front of you. By following this rule, you'll die a lot less and you'll be able to take a lot more fair fights. So rather than pushing out into the middle of the open, make sure while you're scaling, you're always close to some type of cover, whether it's a wall, a box, or even a smoke. Now, going on to tip number 3, this one's a bit personal for me. In my ranked games, a lot of the time, especially on the map Bind when attacking A site, a lot of players don't like taking the full site. They want to take as much as they are comfortable with just so they can quickly get bombed down and then immediately retreat into main so they can safely play for post plant. But my friends, most of the time, this isn't the answer. Let's say if you do this and your team is divided. 2 people stay on site and 3 of you retreat into main. Well, you're basically leaving your 2 teammates on site to fight off the enemies who are retaking the bomb site. Almost every single time you do this, those 2 players are going to die and you guys are going to be put in a very tough situation. This is why a lot of times it's almost best to actually take the bomb site and to hold the bomb site for as long as you can. And let's say if you have a Sova who has his ultimate, then Sova is the one who can play main, saving his utility for post plant. But to have every single one of your players or the majority of your players staying alive in main, waiting for post plant, it's going to be tough. Coming back to the A bomb site on bind, one thing that I noticed is that a lot of players only take up to truck and triple, but they don't want to go beyond that. What I like to do in my games is I like to have a flash agent or a recon agent get us info back site so that we can take under heaven control, get some easy kills, get bomb down, and then as a team get back and place post plant or hold aggressive angles so that we are able to hold the bomb site properly. Now, for the last and final tip, well, this tip may be a little controversial, but it's my honest opinion. The Phantom is way better than the Vandal now, and here's exactly why. You see, the Valorant player base has gotten a lot better when it comes to utility usage. With the Phantom, you're able to spray a lot easier, which allows you to eliminate utility, and then if an enemy decides to swing, transfer your spray onto that enemy. But let's seriously think about it. The only real advantage the Vandal has is that its recoil reset time is faster than the Phantom, and the Vandal is a one-tap headshot from any distance. But if we really think about it, how many of your gunfights are more than 15 meters? I'll beg to argue that we take a lot more close-range gunfights than we do long-range fights, which makes the Phantom the preferable weapon. With the Phantom, the recoil is easier to control, we have more bullets, the gun shoots faster, and it's also harder to detect our exact position compared to the Vandal for the enemies. And just a side note, Phantom skins are just so much better. But on all seriousness, I think one thing that people don't really think about is that if you're close enough, the Phantom is basically a one-shot headshot as well. Within 15 meters, the Phantom deals 156 damage to the head. But another thing people don't think about is that the first shot accuracy is more accurate with the Phantom, making the Phantom, in my opinion, a better weapon. But those are the 4 tips that I have for you guys today, and those are the exact 4 tips that I honestly wish I would have learned sooner within my Valorant journey. But if you guys enjoyed this video, I'll catch you guys on the next one, and well, deuce everyone.